All right, everybody, let's pop open a bottle of champagne, give each other a high five, and gather around the campfire to sing Kumbaya, because today is the day that racism officially ended in the United States. Thank you, Richmond, Virginia. Now, I don't know if you've been following this story or not, but the Robert E. Lee statue in Richmond, Virginia was taken down earlier today. I watched the live stream here on YouTube. There's always some video I'm finding here on YouTube. Seems like I'm always talking about these videos on YouTube. I guess it's because I have a YouTube channel. But the statue was taken down earlier today, and I posted a video yesterday called Robert E. Lee Statue Gotta Go. Go check that video out. Because this was a story that not a lot of people were following, and I saw an article about this on Business Insider's website, so I thought I'd share it with you. And I want to come back and do a follow-up video today. So if you saw me post a video and take it down, there's a reason for that, because I came across a 53-second clip today of a gentleman who was sporting his Confederate battle flag. He was wearing his Confederate battle flag. And he asked a very important question, because he was being interviewed by these reporters. He asked, where were these activists? Just paraphrasing here, but he asked, where were these activists when Dylan Roof went to that church in South Carolina and shot those 9 African Americans? And you know something? I have to be honest. I completely forgot about that incident. I thought, you're right. Where were these protesters when that happened? They didn't demand that the Robert E. Lee statue be taken down until after the George Floyd incident. Why is that? Seems to me like these SJW types pick and choose what they want to protest, what they want to have taken down when it suits them. There's somebody out there that's going to say, yeah, but those of you who support the Confederate battle flag or the American flag, you do the same thing. You want to turn a blind eye to slavery in the South? Hey, bud, slavery was still legally recognized under the U.S. Constitution in 1860 and 1861. It was being practiced in New Jersey. Now, they may have not had as many slaves as you have in the South, but they did practice slavery in New Jersey in 1860, 1861. And you had black slave owners, you have Brazilian slave owners, mulatto slave owners, white slave owners, Native American slave owners, and Native Americans were able to bring their slaves with them on the Trail of Tears. That's 100% true. 100% true. But at the end of this 53-second clip, he told these people, who are these reporters, these protesters, don't be so intellectually lazy. He said, yes, he admitted to the fact that there may have been some things with the Confederacy that needed some fine-tuning, so to speak. But he said, there's blame to go around on both sides. Don't be so intellectually lazy. As I mentioned, slavery was still legally recognized in 1860, 1861 under the U.S. Constitution, and was being practiced in places such as New Jersey or part of the Western Territories. And they had this process of gradual emancipation, which meant that a lot of times living slaves were not freed, but their offspring would be freed once their offspring had given so many years of service, reached a certain age. Then they could be free. That's how gradual emancipation worked. It's like putting toothpaste back in the tube. How do you put toothpaste back in the tube? So what this gentleman said, this event happening in Richmond, Virginia, got me thinking about something. I want to pass this along to you. How about we have a anti-censorship march? That would be awesome. Let's have an anti-censorship march. And I want to see 5,000, 10,000, 20,000, 100,000, 1 million people, 5 million. 10, I want to see as many people out there with their Confederate battle flags, Bonnie Blues, American flags, Betsy Ross flags, your Sons of Liberty flags, Don't Tread on Me flags, any flag that represents liberty. I want to see you out there. And I want to see a banner in front of this march that says they were censoring the music of Shostakovich in Russia. Don't censor us here. Wouldn't that be awesome? What do you think? An anti-censorship march. And another shout out to Brian McClanahan in his channel. He has this whole theme of act locally, think locally, or think locally, act locally. I love watching his channel. I always learn something new. He just did a video about John C. Calhoun, because you have Hillsdale College and these People don't like saying this, or like people saying this, neocons, neoconservatives. And I forget what this gentleman's name was, but he had an interview with Hugh Hewitt. And Hugh Hewitt is saying in this interview, from what Brian was saying in his video, he was saying, well, I don't believe in censorship, but we should take down anything that has to do with John C. Calhoun because John C. Calhoun was really, really bad. Well, guess what? John C. Calhoun was not for secession. This guy served many years in the Senate. He was vice president. A very important figure in American history from what I'm learning about John C. Calhoun. And I was never a fan of John C. Calhoun. So like I said, you learn something new every day. I learned something new from Brian McClanahan's channel when I saw this video about John C. Calhoun. And any of these other videos that he's posted. I've always learned something from watching his channel. And a lot of other channels out there, which reminds me, support the people who are putting content here on YouTube. It's really important. We are a community. We might have differences of opinion, but we are a community. So support these YouTube content creators. Keep this thing called YouTube going. And YouTube, quit doing what these people were doing today in Richmond, Virginia. Quit trying to censor people because you don't agree with what somebody says. Well, guess what? It's a free country. This might be your platform, but these are videos that I create. It's my content that I upload to YouTube. It's my intellectual property, and I will talk about whatever the hell I want to talk about on this channel, whether you like it or not, as long as it's not crying fire or shouting fire in a crowded theater, as the old saying goes. Or something that's too risque, I can understand that. But even then, we're talking about censorship. But I think we should have an anti-censorship march. Like I said, I want to see in front of that march a banner that says they were censoring the music of Shostakovich in Russia. Don't censor us here. Don't censor us here. If you like the video, please click that like button, subscribe. Hit me up on Instagram at hashtag Jason Composes. Leave comments below. And now you can reach me at Twitter, Culture Confederacy at Twitter. And I've got to ask this question because I asked this yesterday on my video about Robert E. Lee, or my video called Robert E. Lee, Statue Gotta Go. Okay, so you remove the statue from Monument Avenue. They removed it today in Richmond, Virginia. And it's going to be moved to a state-run facility. How long will it be before somebody comes along and says that that state-run facility is racist for housing this Robert E. Lee statue? And I made the comment today in debating with people during this live stream. Well, we could just melt that statue down. But then people would claim that the material is racist because it was at one time used to create this statue, which was a tribute to Robert E. Lee, who led the Confederate Army. How far down the rabbit hole are you willing to go, people? No, I'm not going to be censored. And guess what? Racism, bias, prejudice is never going to go away because mankind is flawed. Mankind is flawed. You know, there is racism in nature. Did you know that? In the natural world? In the animal kingdom, there is racism in the animal kingdom. Dogs do not like cats, and cats do not like dogs. Can we call dogs a race? Can we call cats a race? But mankind is flawed. And no matter how many statues you take down, you can't change what happened in 1860 or 1861. And you're not going to prevent another, let's say, police shooting involving a white officer and an African American from taking place in the future. Because at some point or another, it's bound to happen. If you want to call it the law of averages, the law of chance or whatever, it's bound to happen. And when that happens, can you make the argument that taking down this Robert E. Lee statue did not prevent that from happening? So there's all that work, all that time you protesters, you SJW types spent demanding that this statue be taken down. And guess what? Now you have another African American that was killed, God forbid, in a police-involved shooting involving a white officer and an African American suspect who may or may have not been carrying or brandishing a weapon. I'm just using that as an example. Just using that as an example here. But you gotta love the logic of the ultra-left. There is no logic there. Everything is run on emotion. And we still have slavery in places like the Sudan, Pakistan, India, parts of China. And I love the response by the mayor in Richmond, Virginia. Have you seen this? Mayor Larby, Stoney, something. We'll just call him Mayor Lava Man. Mayor Larva Man. Lava Man. So Mayor Larva Man said, now we can have true diversity in our city, when he was being interviewed. And I made the argument yesterday in my video. Once again, that video is Robert E. Lee statue gotta go. And I made the argument, well, if you want real diversity, why don't you keep these Confederate statues up? Why don't you put up the Nazi flag or Native American symbols? Because Native Americans owned slaves. They were allowed to take them with them on the Trail of Tears. You had the Mandarins in China, which ruled with an iron fist, that owned slaves. Ancient Persia, ancient Egypt, ancient Rome. They all owned slaves, including white slaves. Did you know that? So slavery did not start in the United States. And you can say what you want about the CSA, the Confederate States of America, but guess what? When we were founded, we were not founded as a nation. This is the other part of the argument, that people have been led down the primrose pathway. And that is this idea that we were founded as a nation. We were never founded as a nation. We were originally a confederate of states that came together with common interests, common ideas. We came up with this thing called the Articles of Confederation, but it was a weak document, so we came up with a Constitution, and the Constitution was sold to the states because of the 10th Amendment, because the states were always seen as sovereign and independent, and they did not want a government that was as oppressive as the King of England. And the 13 colonies, 13 states, because some colonies were in the process of becoming states, were at the time citizens of Great Britain. They were part of the nation of Great Britain. And guess what? They seceded from the mother country. And the King of England, King George, promised to free the slaves if they left their rebel masters. Sounds familiar to what happened in 1860, 1861, doesn't it? But you have this fight with the Lincolnites and the Jeffersonians. That's really what the fight was all about. How much power should the federal government have? And no state at any point was ever or has ever been in or under any obligation with the Constitution, any constitutional obligation, to remain in this quote-unquote union, which we're not a union. Once again, we are a confederate of states. We always have been. Lincoln believed in centralized power. The Jeffersonians believed in limited government. And having states be required to, or have a constitutional obligation to stay in the Union, would be like being under the thumb of the king. They didn't want that. And they had no idea which states were going to stay and which states were going to leave to become a part of this thing we call the United States of America. They thought this was an experiment. They didn't know that we would end up 250 some, or however many years later it is, the country that we are today. So once again, you enjoy the video, please click that like button, subscribe. Hit me up on Instagram at #JasonComposes, leave comments below. And now you can reach me at Twitter, Cultural Confederacy at Twitter. So think about it, folks. Don't be taking down statues. Don't be banning or burning books. Don't be like Hitler, Stalin, Mao, Castro. Let's have debate. If you want real diversity, keep those Confederate statues up in Richmond, Virginia. That's real diversity, because that creates dialogue. And then we can talk about the ins and outs of what happened in 1860 or 1861. Somebody brought up, oh yeah, a lot of these statues were created during Jim Crow. Well, during the time of Jim Crow, there was also huge anti-German sentiment in this country during World War I and World War II. 1891, during the David Hennessy trial, David Hennessy murder trial, when the verdict was read, 11 to 12 Italian Americans were lynched within feet of a Confederate monument. That's a true story. Go check it out if you don't believe me. So was the Confederacy really racist? But I think we should have this anti-censorship march. And once again, I want that banner in front of that march with 5 million people, 10 million people, 100 million people in this country, all you patriots, all you Confederates. That banner should read, "They were censoring the music of Shostakovich in Russia. Don't censor us here." This is the Culture Confederacy saying peace out. Stay safe, everybody. God bless this great country, and I'll catch you next time.